What's up everybody, Trinity here, and welcome back to the Second Street Marvel. In today's video I'm going to be talking about Spider-Man, and with the ever-rising popularity of the Marvel Cinematic Universe, this character has never been in such high demand. And if you're getting out to your local comic book shop to find a good comic book to read, well, it can be quite an intimidating task. And that's what I'm going to be talking about in today's video. Now before I get into that, please make sure you're subscribed, click the little bell and all of that good stuff. Help defeat the forces of Hydra from crushing me in the YouTube algorithm. Come on, I appreciate your help. Now, as I said, if you're just getting into the character of Spider-Man by way of either the Marvel Cinematic Universe or you're just getting into reading comics, if you're getting out to your local comic book shop to pick up a good title to read, it can be quite an intimidating task, and depending on who you are, it might depend on what title that you might want to read. So by the end of this video, I'm going to tell you what comic book series I think would be best for you, or which one I think is the best, and you know, it really kind of depends on you ultimately. That I will go through some of these different series that are available out there. Now, in case you don't already know, Spider-Man was first premiered in Amazing Fantasy issue number 15 back in August of 1965. And ever since then, he's pretty much been a staple of the American pop culture. And with him crossing over into movies finally a handful of years ago in Sam Raimi's first Spider-Man trilogy, and then now the Marvel Cinematic Universe has exploded his popularity even more. Now, if you go to your local comic book shop, there are a huge ton of titles out there to choose from. I mean, you've got everything from Peter Parker Spider-Man to spin-off characters like Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy, and even Superior Spider-Man, which was Otto Octavius. So, you know, which one's right for you? Well, it's really hard to say, but I'm going to let you know, and we're going to go just start here on the list of different ones that you can go check out. And we're going to start off with some of the spin-off characters. First off, there is Ghost Spider. This series is currently on issue number 3, and it's being written by Shannon McGuire with the art being done by Takeshi Miyazawa. And this story basically tells the story of Gwen Stacy from Earth 65. She's going to college. She crosses over into the Marvel 616 universe to go to college because she can't quite handle some of the pressures of society and her life in Earth 65. So, you know, you might want to read this one if you're into some of the spin-off characters and want to read more about Gwen Stacy, Spider-Gwen, which is a female-led book, obviously. The next one I want to talk about is Miles Morales Spider-Man. Miles Morales Spider-Man is basically a mixed-race Spider-Man where he goes through a lot of the same things that Peter Parker does. I believe this series is currently on issue number 12. I could be wrong there. It's somewhere right around there. Saladin Ahmed is the one doing the writing over there. And again, we're just following Miles Morales as he goes through just through life, you know, trying to go to school and balance being his personal life and his life as a superhero. And again, he is a mixed race character, so if you want something out of the norm, you might want to go check this one out. It's been a pretty decent read, but it's not one I've been pulling anymore to read recently. Just a whole lot of Spider-Man titles out there, as you'll see here. The next one I want to talk about is the Superior Spider-Man, and this is Otto Octavius, who is filling in as basically the Superior Spider-Man. He's not Spider-Man, and he's living in San Francisco after the events. Basically what had happened at some point, he cloned a body of Peter Parker and became Peter Parker there for a while. Well, now he's using a clone body and going by the name Elliot Tolliver, living in San Francisco and helping fight crime. And he's kind of the city's protector. And they're on issue number 12, is getting ready to come out this week as of the recording of this video. And it's been a pretty good story seeing him struggle with, you know, going from being a bad guy like he used to be in the past, a villain, to becoming a good guy, and just, you know, some of his relationships and his past, how it's all coming to fruition in this story. It's been really good, written by Christos Gage. I've really enjoyed Superior Spider-Man. But that's a spin-off character. The next one I want to talk about is just this new series. It's a mini-series called Spider-Man. It's being written by JJ and his son Henry Abrams with art by Sarah Pichelli, and it's a 5-issue mini-series in which it's more of a spin-off of Spider-Man, or maybe just like a futuristic tale and a different take, where Mary Jane has been dead for 12 years. Peter Parker has a son named Ben, and Ben is currently living with Aunt May and just going through life and discovering that he has the same powers that his father had, and he discovers his father's suit and becomes somewhat of a hero. They're only on issue number 2 as of the recording of this video. It's been a pretty decent series. Something that, if you want one of these spin-off characters, or maybe just like a futuristic type of tale about Peter Parker, you might want to check that one out. Now there's also the Spider-Verse comic book that is currently out. It's on issue number 1 right now. Issue number 2 should be releasing soon, and it's a 6-issue miniseries. Gathering a bunch of the different Spider-Man from the basically the Spider-Verse. If you watched Into the Spider-Verse that came out on Sony Pictures just in 2018, you might know a little bit about this character, but it's going to be following Miles Morales, Gwen Stacy, Spider-Pig, and a whole bunch of other different spider-type heroes through this short 6-issue miniseries. And that's really about it for all the spin-off Peter Parker characters there are. Like I said, there's a whole host of those that you can go check out if you don't want the classic Peter Parker character in Spider-Man. And these are ones, depending on who you are, you might want to check these out. But for me, I've got to say, if I want to read more about Spider-Man, I would suggest some of the other titles. And like I said, by the end of the video, I'll let you know which one it is. But you should look more into Peter Parker Spider-Man. He's our classic Spider-Man. He's the one that we've come to know and love for over the years. So you can also find a whole bunch of different one-shots out based on Peter Parker Spider-Man. I recently did a video on the Amazing Spider-Man Full Circle, which is like just a crazy zany tale of him going out and just dealing with these werewolves. There is also the Sensational Spider-Man Self-Improvement. There's also Spider-Man Reptilian Rage. God, I can't even remember what else. There's been others out there as well. Just little one-shot books. If you want something that's just a one-shot book to read about this character, you could certainly do that. Then there are other characters kind of coming out of that. There is the one in the Gamerverse that is actually called Spider-Man Velocity. I believe this is going to be a 5-issue miniseries, and that's based on the PlayStation 4 Spider-Man character. And this one is a continuation of City at War, I believe, that just happened not too long ago. So again, it's a little miniseries that you could get into if you want to read some Spider-Man comic books that are, dealing with that PlayStation 4, the Gamerverse, I guess you could say. The next one I want to talk about, there's a couple of miniseries that came out not too long ago. First off, there was Symbiote Spider-Man that was written by Peter David. You can see the poster right there in my background. Again, this was a pretty good series. It was basically telling the story of Peter Parker back in the 80s when he got back from Secret Wars, back from space with the symbiote suit and hadn't yet learned all of the good and bad things about this suit. And the main villain in this story is Mysterio. We also get run-ins with some other familiar characters as well. Felicia Hardy is a big part of the story, Black Cat as well. So this one was really well done. The art in the book was really good too. Really polished, kind of shiny. I mean, I thought it was a really nice book, and it was a pretty good little 5-issue miniseries. And again, it's a miniseries, not an ongoing, so you don't have to commit to anything. The next one that I want to talk about is Spider-Man Life Story. This book was really well done. Now, that book was being written by Chip Zdarsky, and the artist was Mark Bagley, and I believe the color artist was Frank Diamanta, and I apologize, I can't remember who the inker was. And I believe this book was basically telling the life of Peter Parker from the 1960s all the way through the 2010s. It went decade by decade. It was a 6-issue miniseries that each issue covered a different decade. The first one being the 60s, when Peter Parker first got bitten by the spider and became Spider-Man, on through the 70s, on through the 80s, 90s, 2000s, and even the 2010s. Each decade is in there, and you see Peter Parker age through his life instead of that 10-year sliding scale that we're used to seeing in the comics. Again, this was a really good one. We run across a lot of familiar faces like Tony Stark, Steve Rogers, and just some other people like that. And we see that there's a lot of the familiar things that have happened throughout Peter Parker's life in this little 6-issue miniseries. It was a really well done one. It would be kind of cool to see some other life stories like this go on, like with a Captain America or an Iron Man or something like that. But I don't know. Again, that one just came out on trade paperback as well. The trade paperback is the collected edition where it has all 6 issues in there. Definitely, I would say go check this one out if you want to read something like that. Now, the next ones that I want to cover here, these are the ongoing series. And if you ask me, if you want to read more about Spider-Man, these are the 2 that that it's going to come between for if you want to get into this character or read up more on this character. Now, the first one I want to talk about is The Amazing Spider-Man. This series is currently being written by Nick Spencer, and Nick Spencer has done a really good job. They are currently on issue number 32. And this whole series has been pretty good. Back in issue number 1, basically, Nick Spencer kind of brought Peter Parker back into his classic form, whereas before, under the Dan Slott era, he had become, there was, it did a lot with the Superior Spider-Man and Doc Ock, but he was basically in charge of Parker Industries. He was somewhat of a Tony Stark protege, I guess you could say, kind of like that. Well, Nick Spencer brought him back into his classic form, where we've got Peter Parker back in New York, just struggling with things as he lost his company, he lost basically all his credibility, and he's going back to college. He gets back in a relationship with Mary Jane. He runs across a whole bunch of foes, obviously, a whole bunch of follies that ensue. And within this series, they actually did a little mini series called The Hunted not too long ago, in which they did some tie-ins that were showcasing some of the villains that were going on throughout this Hunted series. And The Hunted was overall Spider-Man and Kraven the Hunter going at it. And then now recently, in the past handful of issues, they tied into the Absolute Carnage event, and now they're getting ready to tie into the 29/9 event that is getting ready to happen in Marvel Comics. And we also see that through this series, Mary Jane is back in the picture, and she actually goes off in one of these series, I believe it was issue number 30, she went off to New York, and that's where her spin-off series, The Amazing Mary Jane, is coming into play. The Amazing Spider-Man, like I said, it's been really good. Nick Spencer's done a great job writing that book, and Ryan Ottley has been off and on this series throughout. He was really there a lot through, I think, the first 10 issues or so, and I've got to tell you guys, when he's drawing this book, Ryan Ottley does a phenomenal job drawing this book. I really love his art in this book. And, altogether, it's been a pretty good series with Nick Spencer at the helm. The next one I want to talk about is Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Now, this book is being written by Tom Taylor, and I would say Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is a little bit more small scale. We're getting a little bit more intimate with Peter Parker and just some of the situations that he's going through with Aunt May and just in his personal life. It's been a pretty good series so far, and that one is, I believe, issue number 12 has just come out. And again, that's been a really great series. It's just getting ready to come out this week, but it's been a really great series. Tom Taylor has done a great job really grounding the character of Peter Parker, something that is really nice. We don't get these same kind of stories in the Amazing Spider-Man series. Amazing Spider-Man is a little bit more bigger scale, larger scale, more exciting kind of stuff, where Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is a little more down to earth, a little bit more Peter Parker dealing with the villains and just the situations that's going on in his life, just kind of seeing him growing up and being a man. And this series is really well done. The whole question here is, if you're getting out to your local comic book shop and you want to read one of these, what do you want to read? Do you want to read about the female spin-off character Spider-Gwen, and her struggles? Do you want to read about Miles Morales, who goes through a lot of the same thing that Peter does? Do you want to read about the Superior Spider-Man that's Otto Octavius? Do you want just a one-shot story where you can go and read a whole bunch of the different one-shots that are out there involving Spider-Man? Something silly? Check out Full Circle. If you want something a little more serious, check out Reptilian Rage. But there's also those little miniseries, which I said Life Story and Symbiote Spider-Man were really well done, really good little series. But if it comes down to it, I tell you, you've got to check out the classic Peter Parker if you're going out to your local comic book shop. And like I said, that comes down to Amazing Spider-Man and the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. Like I said, Amazing Spider-Man is currently, it's a bi-monthly issue, so you're getting 2 issues a month. And Nick Spencer's been doing a really good job with it. And then on the other hand, you've got Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, which is currently at issue number 12, and Tom Taylor has been doing phenomenal. So you can already tell right there which way I'm going to go. If you want to get out to your local comic book shop, you want one of these series to read, you've got to go. I say, if you ask me, you absolutely have to go out and check out Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man, written by Tom Taylor. Again, the story has been really good, a little more smaller scale, a little more intimate with Peter Parker. You get to know the character just a little bit better, as opposed to some of the grander scale things going on with Nick Spencer's Amazing Spider-Man. But both of those titles are really good. You can't go wrong with either one of those. But hey, if you don't want an ongoing, either one of those little mini-series that I just had suggested that are currently on trade paperback are very good options as well. But if you ask me, I'm telling you, go check out Tom Taylor's Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man. But let me know down in the comments below. Have you gone out to your local comic book shop and looked for a Spider-Man title? If so, were you confused? And if so, are you currently reading any of these series I was talking about? Let me know your thoughts on all those. And what do you think about my pick of the Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man as the one that you need to read? That's all I have for this video today, folks. Thank you all so much for tuning into the Second Street Marvel. Now, if you haven't already, please make sure you're subscribed and click that little bell so you get notifications anytime I have uploaded new content. And if you like this video, please give it a thumbs up, and if you don't, give it a thumbs down. It's all good. I don't take it personal. But while you're at it, make sure you share it with a friend and invite them to come hang out with us here on the Second Street Marvel. You all have a very good day. Have a great rest of your week. Happy reading, and we'll see you in the next video. Later.